one of the great joys of podcasting has been meeting psychologists and meeting neuroscientists and then trying to understand both their worlds and silently comparing them.
Okay.
I think that one of the themes that comes out of both these kinds of guests is neuroplasticity,
Yeah. Neuroplasticity.
right?
Sure.
Basically, one's brain is like a tree and it keeps changing as life moves
Yeah.
forward.
Well, plastic, of course, people think plastic means to mold. It's a Greek word. It means to mold. So neuroplasticity means that the neurons are molding as you change your thoughts. The brain is rewiring itself all the time. And that's a very, very good thing.
Now, parallelly, I love the world of sport, especially cricket and football. But I've noticed that everyone watches these sports for different reasons. The reason I watch sport is to gauge stories of younger athletes. I love seeing someone's trajectory. I love seeing what happens in people's lives. And then, depending on where they end up, either as a mega success or a medium success or even a failure in some cases or a high potential failure in some cases, I love kind of rewinding and understanding what's gone wrong.
Sure.
So now I want to ask you about the neuroplasticity of people who get it right. And then I want you to speak a little bit about the neuroplasticity of people who get it wrong, especially those who began with very high potential.
Well, if you look at athletes, they do what they do not want to do to get to where they want to be. So an athlete will get out of bed at 5 a.m., scrape the ice off their car and go training. They'll run, they'll push themselves to a limit. And people who are successful do that. People who succeed will do what they do not want to do to get to where they want to go. They'll stay up all night researching. They'll do a lot of work. But other people, they'd rather give up their dream than do what they don't want to do. That comes back a lot to weight. Again, people say, I couldn't live without ice cream. I'm not prepared to live without cake. Life is so boring without takeout. So athletes are very interesting because they do what they dislike pretty much every day to get to where they want to be. And that all the time, that is neuroplasticity. They're wiring themselves to challenge themselves, to run faster, to jump higher, to train every day. And they talk to themselves. They never go, oh my God, this is where they go, no, I want the medal. This is what I want. They really direct their mind. If you look at Marines when they're running, they sing. They send a message to the brain, oh, you're running and you're singing. I guess you must like it because you wouldn't sing if you didn't like it. So they always have this feedback going on. So athletes feed back to their brain all the time, I want the pain. I want the endurance. I want the stress. I want it. I've chosen it. And I've chosen to feel great about it because I want that medal. And that's what you say to the brain. Okay, I want this. If I want a baby, then I accept I'm going to be getting up. But if I want a really great career, I accept that I'm going to have to go to work and put. If I want to be the boss, I'm not going to take the same holidays as my staff. So whatever you require is going to require something of you. Some people say, oh no, that's too hard and I don't want to do it, which is fine. Not everybody wants that. But whatever you want, whatever you requires something of you, and you must be prepared to pay the price to go and get it.
So with the athletes who begin with a lot of high potential but don't end up making it big, do you think that it's the loss of this exact ability?
Well, sometimes, no, sometimes, I mean, I have a great friend who was a high-performing athlete, but he just never quite made the grade. So sometimes, it can be hard. They get injured. Or they start very young. They're away from home all the time. They're away from their family. So some of them just find it too pressured and they say, no, I don't want it. And sometimes they just, the grade is very high, to make it. I was working with someone who was training to be a football player for Chelsea, and they said you have a 2% chance in the youth team of going through. 2% is very low odds, but it's often the price some people have to pay is just too high.
I follow the work of Dr. Andrew Huberman pretty closely.
Okay.
And he speaks about this part of the brain. I think it's called the anterior cingulate cortex. And it can be visualized to be a bit of almost like a muscle inside your brain, which gets strengthened every time you force your brain into doing an activity
Of course.
that it doesn't want to actually do.
Yeah.
For the sake of your own growth.
Yeah.
The kind of tricky aspect here is that if you eventually start enjoying that activity, then the growth of the anterior cingulate cortex stops.
Sure, of course.
So it only grows when you're actually seeking
You
discomfort.
only really grow when you do what you don't want to do. That's where growth comes from. Doing something you don't want to do, or you're not familiar with that. Learning a new language, learning a new skill. We should always be growing, but you can only grow doing something new or different or even uncomfortable.